Oh, they actually came on this time. You showing your balls to the camera?
No.
All right, well, we're going to show something simple today. I got to change the oil in my truck. So for any of you guys that have a 4.9 straight 6, my truck is a 93 F-150. It's beat up, it's raggedy, but hey, it gets me back and forth to work, and I have no complaints whatsoever. I have a 10,000 pound lift in my shop. I hate having to get down on the ground, so we're going to use that to help out, and we'll take you guys along for the journey. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you won't. We'll show you guys how to properly put a vehicle on a lift, and then we'll put it up in the air and we'll go through the oil change process. It's an easy process you can do on your own at home, and it actually saves a lot of money. I do it for all my vehicles. So we'll get to it. Alright, first thing you want to do on putting it on the lift, I've done this a few times, so it's not usually a problem. Plus my truck's kind of bigger than a lot of the other cars and stuff we work on. First thing you want to do is get it as centered as possible in the lift. Which, you know, I did an alright job. Could be better. Slide all your legs up under the vehicle. Make sure they all fit. Make sure you don't have to back up or anything like that. See, I pulled a little too far forward. But on the smaller cars, you have to pull forward in order to get the front forks in, and then back up a little bit in order to get the rear ones in. Okay, they all go under. Let me put it back in gear. Put the parking brake on. I don't want it rolling. Go ahead and pop the hood, since I'm going to have to get up under there. Alright, and then you got to get down on the floor. Alright, every manufacturer has points on the frame where they recommend that you put a jack. Obviously you want to be careful not to, this emergency brake lines, you don't want to crush those or anything like that, and you don't want to put it on anything that's bolted on. You always want to jack it up or put the lift at a point on the frame. So with the lift, if you look up there, you see how my frame on this particular truck is down further up front and higher in the back. So with this lift, you've got these screw out and adjust to kind of help that offset. Once you get it up in the air, you want the vehicle to be as level as possible, not leaning forward, because that's where all the weight is with the engine and all that stuff. And obviously you don't want it falling on you. That might hurt a little bit. So you get it close to the area you want. I'm gonna hit right there, right in front of those, and right behind that little nipple, whatever that is. All right. Well, I got it lined up on both sides. Let's go ahead and bring the lift up some. Get it close. And then we're gonna double check down here. So we still need to go up further, but it tells me I'm getting close. Also, one thing I didn't mention is on this lift, these arms go in and out. So it helps you adjust to where you need it if you don't get the vehicle exactly centered. All right, let's bring her up. Since you can never be too safe carrying a 4,000 pound vehicle above your head, it's always good to check, and recheck. That guy's good. It's hitting the bitch step, but that's fine. There's no avoiding that. Alright, let's bring her up. Oh, well, actually, before I bring her up, I should really open the hood since starting to get into the oil change portion now. What I'm going to do is remove the oil cap. What that'll do is it'll let the air get back down in there, which it should anyway, but it just helps. That way when we go to drain it, it'll have airflow and it'll actually all come out. Alright, well, let's bring her up. Now, you guys heard the clicking. That's an important safety feature. If it's not clicking, you do not want to get under there. Those are actually safety latches in case the hydraulics start to give and it, doesn't keep pressure, like if you got a leak or something like that. So, always make sure you hear those clicks. Another thing you can do before you get on there is you just take your vehicle, not hard, but you just kind of push on it a little bit and you see if you've got excessive wobble or it feels like it's teeter-tottering, then you need to put it back down on the ground and readjust the way you've got your lift points, because something's not right. Let me see how far up I got to reach for this oil filter. Okay, we can go up a little bit further. First thing you need to do, besides take your oil cap off, is you got to take your drain plug out. And that'll drain all the oil out of the engine. That's right here. This is a, what size is this? This is a 9/16 on this particular vehicle. Yours may be different. Obviously make sure you're going the right way. And all you do is you just loosen it up. Make sure you don't get oil all over the floor. People get mad when you do that. I find what helps is if you push in on the bolt a little bit, it'll keep it from seeping out so fast until you're ready just to yank it out of the way like that. See, I didn't get any on my fingers, surprisingly. And as far as the bolt, I'll just leave it in there. It's got a filter. And that is about 5,000 mile oil. It's nasty. Let's see the light. That's pretty black. Basically, if you pull your dipstick out and you see that, you need to change it. Now, if it looks milky, more like chocolate milk, especially when you pull the dipstick out, then you have a water leak somewhere, either a intake manifold gasket or a head gasket or something like that. You should really get somebody to check it out unless you're proficient enough to do something like that. I just replaced a intake manifold gasket because of the same thing in my wife's vehicle a couple weeks ago. So let this drain till it'll drain, it'll drip, and then we'll move on to the oil filter. Now that we're done draining, well, it's still dripping a little bit, but that's all right. It's pretty much drained. I'm gonna wipe my drain plug off, and I'm gonna stick it back in so I can move the catch and it not drip like that all over my shop floor. You don't have to do it super tight. It's actually, matter of fact, here, I'll just show you guys. A lot of vehicles have, see that little nylon nut on there? It's not a nylon nut, nylon washer. So that actually seals pretty good. You don't have to torque those down in your oil pan and strip out the threads. So for now, I'm just going to hand tighten it. And I'm going to wipe off right here where it's dripping, because it's not dripping anymore. That way I can move my catch over or below my oil filter, which is up here on this particular vehicle. This truck is actually pretty easy to get to. Some vehicles, it's a pain in the butt. But the process is pretty much the same for all of them. So all you do is just take it and you spin it counterclockwise, You see it's starting to drain. Spin it counterclockwise until it's off the threads. And it will be full of oil, so you just dump it in whatever you're catching the oil in. Now you can wipe it off if you want to. A couple different trains of thought when putting the oil filters back in. By the way, I like these Fram extra guards for my vehicle because they've got that little sandpaper type backing on them. It's real easy to grab onto them. So for this particular truck, the 9349 is a PH 8A. Now, one thing you do want to do, like I said, there's a couple trains of thought here. A lot of people will tell you that you need to put oil in the filter. You need to fill the filter up before you put it back on. Well, a problem that I run into doing that is I've got to mount it sideways so it just pours all back out. But what is important, and more important than that, is this rubber seal. You want to put oil on it. So you can take a little bit of the oil that came out and you make sure that that seal is nice and wet and there's no debris on it, because this is what seals and it'll keep it from leaking. And then you screw it back on there, hand tight. You don't want to torque this down because it's trust me, it's a pain in the ass to get off if it's stuck. You got that thick rubber seal, so you get it by hand, you're good. Matter of fact, that's probably too tight for me because next time I'll have to take something to it to get it off. Now there is another trick. There is another trick to those. If you can't get it off, and this is a messy trick, but I've had to do it quite a few times. If you get a different filter that doesn't have the grippiness on it like that, it's just a regular oil filter. I don't have any around here to show you. But if it's just a regular oil filter and you can't really get a grip on it to turn it because of, you know, it's got road grime on it and everything. It's been 3,000 or 4,000 miles since you changed your oil. If you really can't get it off, what you do is you take a flathead screwdriver and you take a hammer and you do it straight up in there and you hit it and you actually puncture it. Now you're going to get oil everywhere, but get that screwdriver in as far as you can go, and that will give you leverage to actually turn the filter. And once you get it loose, obviously you can pull the screwdriver out, do it by hand. The bigger screwdriver you got, the better. But that's just a little trick. Just a little trick in case it's stuck on there. So now that that's on there good, we've got the new oil filter on. Let me go ahead, before I forget, and tighten down the drain bolt. Again, since this has that nylon washer on it, it doesn't have to be torqued down tight. It just needs to be nice and snug. All right, and that's it for under the vehicle. Now we're ready to go up top, fill her up. I was talking about the safety latches earlier on the lift. And one reason they're important is obviously to keep the hydraulics from seeping down. However, you got to undo those safety latches once you're ready to bring the vehicle down. Once you've verified that everything's clear under the vehicle and there's nothing, and I'll show you on that side, but you pull this little cable and it unlocks each side. So I know it's got spider webs and all that stuff. It's a shop in the woods. So all you do is you pull, and now You want to make sure everybody's not under the vehicle, and then you can let it down. Alright, at this point the truck is starting to lay back down on the ground. Starting to put the weight back on the springs and the shocks. I'm going to go ahead and leave the lift where it is because I know it's positioned in case for whatever reason I got to put it back up in the air. I don't anticipate that. Now it's just time to put oil in it, check it, and make sure it's good to go. I used to run conventional oil in here, but this particular truck was rebuilt by my dad. It's got 265-ish thousand miles on the chassis, and I think about a little less than 60 on the rebuilt motor. Since I usually use this Valvoline. Is this Valvoline? Yeah, Valvoline Max Life. I've always put that in my wife's vehicle, so I finally just switched and started putting that in my truck. Usually when you put oil in a vehicle, you want to stick with the same type of oil, meaning conventional, synthetic blend, or full synthetic. Now your full synthetics, they're going to be more expensive, so that's why I buy this synthetic blend, because formulated for high mileage and all that good stuff. Yeah, I don't know how well or what that really means, but I've been using it and I've had good success with it. So I know that this truck holds about 5 quarts. I'd have to look it up to get exact, but this is 5 quarts, and I usually put the whole thing in there, and that's usually just about right once I run it, and then I check the oil again. I always buy an extra quart to have on hand because, hey, this is an old truck. It burns a little bit of oil. So I keep it with me, and I use that to top it off in case it's not all the way full. So for this, I'm just using a funnel. I'm pouring it in there, and I'm waiting for the funnel to empty, and then I'll pour more in there and just keep going until I use up this whole container. You put your 5 quarts in, wait for it all to settle down, and then you check it. If you look on here, you got those cross hatches. You don't want to go over that full line. That's not good for your vehicle. Okay? And sometimes it's easier to turn over and see where it is when you first take it out, because it'll be on there. It's always good to wipe it off and check it a couple of times just to be sure. And this is just a dipstick. It says engine oil. So you stick it in there all the way, give it a couple seconds, you pull it back out, and I always hold on to it so I don't fling oil everywhere. But see, that's full, and you can see on the back side where it's coming up, and that's nice clean oil. That's brand new oil. Alright, so my extra quart that I usually buy, I don't need to add any to it right now. Now, one thing I will do, however, once I get the filter out of the way, is I'm going to put the cap back on, and I'm going to crank the truck and let it run for about a minute. That way it starts pumping the oil, it fills up the oil filter and all that. Once I do that, then I may need to add some more. Well, I cranked the truck up. Obviously it's cold because it's been sitting there, but you've got your oil pressure right there. When you first crank it up, it may be low and not registering, but that's fine. After a couple of seconds, it should pop back up to normal. If it doesn't, then you need to check for leaks and make sure all your oil that you just put in is not all over your floor. For my truck, you know, I put in a tack, and I also have mechanical gauges down here. You can see it a lot on the mechanical gauge, but see, it went right up to about 54, 53, 54 at idle, which is pretty good at a cold high idle. All right, well, it's ran for about a minute, so we're going to cut it off and check the oil again. Let it run for a minute. Let's check the oil again. Now, you're not going to be able to see it without wiping it off first and then sticking it back in there. I know that's what she said, all that. But see how it's low now? It's below the add marker. So the crosshatch starts there and the oil's down to there. So that tells me right there that we need to add at least half a quart to get it back in the crosshatches. So we'll do that. But that's why it's always important to run your vehicle after you change the oil, because it's got to fill up the oil pump, and all that oil is being pumped up to the top of your engine. So your level that's sitting in your pan is going to show different. So I'm going to put about half of this in there. Matter of fact, let me get my funnel again. And I use one of these funnels that has the little filter in the bottom of it. It just helps. Typically your oil you buy from the parts store is not going to have any particulates or anything like that in it, but it's just an extra safety measure to keep dirt and shit like that out of your vehicle. Now that the oil filter's full and all that stuff, you don't necessarily have to crank it up and let it run another minute and then check it. You know, you can get it close at this point, and you should be good to go. And then, you know, maybe a day or two after you drive it, it's always good practice to check it again just to make sure you don't have any leaks. And that's after, when you're done and you button everything up, you check under the vehicle and make sure, obviously, there's no leaks. So we let that half a quart in there. Let's check it again. So see, that's brought it up right at halfway of the crosshatches. Yep. It's right at halfway on the crosshatches, so I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of that quart, and that should bring it right up to the top of the crosshatches. So we're going to check it one last time now that all that oil's in there. It should be right at, well, it's about 3/4 on the hatch marks. So I'd say that's good to go. Alright, so don't forget to put your cap back on, and you're good to go. Like I said, the next day, after you check underneath right now, that there's no leaks, which I don't see any. I think we're good. In a day or so, check again. Make sure that your oil level has stayed pretty much where it is. Add more if you need to, and that's it. I mean, there's not a whole lot to do in an oil change on this vehicle, or any vehicle for that matter. The most difficult part is gaining access to the oil filter. This truck is not too bad. Like I said earlier, other vehicles, it's kind of a pain because it's a tight squeeze. But that's it. That's changing your oil.